So please continue. That was good.
So when I back then I didn't understand it, and I just have the realization that this is happening when I have a fight here, or I have a good emotion or good state here, or I feel somehow relaxed. I go to a customer and everybody else in my company is saying, "Oh, this customer is very difficult," and I go there and everything was smooth and easy because I was somehow, how do you say, relaxed and open. And this is something what occurred to me. I had a wish or always the thought there's something more than, or let me put it a different way. I come to the spiritual stuff through different ways. I have in my family some healers, let's say,
Mm,
not in a direct family, but cousin and stuff like that. And they have also a good sense of energy. They can see what is happening in the near future and stuff like that. And this is the way how I come to it. And then also, of course, the big scene of manifesting stuff with thoughts. And
mhm.
I always have the feeling this is only kind of the first step for everybody who is going into this direction because it's something ego from the
Yeah.
ego to go in this direction. But on one point, I have to realize there's something much more deeper. And this is what happened to me very fast. And this is why I come in this direction of Dharma and then deeper understanding of myself and meditation. And I think this is a combination of different stuff I had in my history, which leads to my first Boomi opening without knowing it,
Mm,
because I always was searching for dissolving what we have discussed, the subconscious issues, and
right.
because I
Yeah.
can't find them. And so in this way, I tried ayahuasca, I tried letting go techniques, I tried Vipassana, of course, according to Goenka, it was very interesting. Also, just meditation, but you're doing like Zen. I learned something that's called SAM. It's just a self-created name of some guy. It's spontaneous anima movement. It's like just standing there, not moving and feeling the energy inside the body,
Hmm.
and let this energy move the body. So there's happening some, I don't know how you call this.
Twitching
Um,
or
yes, twitching,
spontaneous
exactly,
movement. Yeah.
exactly. And this was kind of hitting me because I did this in just take 20, 30 minutes and exactly felt like I have a ayahuasca session in the jungle in Peru with a shaman. It's exactly the same feeling after that. It's something is cleaned in your energy system. It
Hmm.
was really interesting to see you can do this by your own. Just let go and there's no subconscious control of it and just happening. It was really good. And I think when you show these videos, this remembered me so very well to this experience. And I think this is a great way to continue after purification of the mind or the
Mm.
body.
Something interesting that you started, what you said a couple of minutes ago was that how we have the same conflicts and same problems again and again if the mind remains the same. But
Mhm.
that is also actually a good if you turn it the other way around, because when the mind gets clearer and clearer and more settled into the basic state, then it's a good indicator if you're really advancing in practice or not. Because if the conflicts remain the same, then you're not. But if the conflicts change, then it's an indication that it works. One is progressing. That's an interesting thing that you said, and I started thinking because I've had so many conflicts. Well, in my life before Dharma and after Dharma, and especially as a founder of Amrita Mandala, when I've had to do so much work through the internet, because that was when I started teaching, I was really active in Finland for how many years? Almost 10 years. But
Mhm.
then in 2016, 17, I felt like things are not progressing in Finland anymore. So actually, couple of years before that, I started writing blogs in English and maybe gave like a Dharma talk in English that was put to YouTube. So, but nevertheless, saying things differently than what is used to, it created lots of conflict in the community of practitioners, Dharma
Mhm.
community, and I just started remembering this when you said that about conflicts and how because it was really really difficult for me for many years because it was like constant daily bashing. I would get like really nasty name calling messages into my email box and to my Facebook Messenger, and just people who I never met sending me really awful messages. So this lasted for several years, but looking back to that, I don't have any of that reactivity, and it's actually also something other thing that I've been thinking about recently in relation to what is happening in my own personal life is conflicts and ethics, which is really important in Dharma,
Mhm.
because when you are in conflicts and the more difficult it is, it really tests you, puts you into test. So that is also a fantastic feature about conflicts, because if you have a very smooth life, very smooth situations, work, finances, relationship, all that, if it's very smooth, you're not really tested properly. So, of course, it can be the other extreme when it's too much. I think that in my case it was just too much, but I nevertheless had to deal with it. But that's why so many Dharma masters, they say in their teachings that difficulties, or they might use the word demons, are a blessing. It's blessing to have difficulties, hardships, these demons in life, because they show our true colors. They
Mhm.
show exactly where we are and where our weak points are. So there was something else you said that I was meaning to. There was something that came to my mind, but I already forgot it. What you said.
That when I doesn't matter where I travel, I have the same situations which mirror my energetic state at the moment. So if I had a fight here, let's say with my brother, and go to the customer on the other side of the planet, I will have the same issue again, just a different topic.
Yeah.
Maybe something in this direction.
No, it was actually something that you said, that how you tested different things, like
Ah, yeah.
psychedelics and then some healing practices and manifestation. And I often make jokes about playing the didgeridoo and doing a Mongolian throat singing and then doing all these things, because those are the things that I did back in the day. I never tried psychedelics, and I've already tried peyote once, but
Mhm.
it didn't have any effect. Maybe I took too little. It was with a like a very famous American Native American medicine man, Rupert
Mhm.
Encinas, who comes to Finland every year. He's actually also Shinzen Young's teacher
Mhm.
in how do you say, in Native American medicine things. But yeah, I didn't it didn't have any effect on me. This was 2018 in August. So 4.5 years ago, and I was a bit disappointed because I was expecting something to happen.
Yeah. It could be maybe the topic that the technique of, let's say, Zen body art has the same effect, cleaning effect as the ayahuasca with the shaman in the jungle. This was the most hitting or most interesting finding for myself, that what a lot tons of medicine people are doing with psychedelics like ayahuasca and whatever, you can create by yourself just energetically
Yeah,
working it. This is really, really mind blowing for me.
yeah, and that's an interesting thing because you know the world's most famous podcast at the moment is Joe Rogan Experience. So
Mhm.
you know Joe Rogan? Have you
Yes,
listened?
yes.
I don't think there's anybody who used the internet who doesn't know who Joe Rogan is, but hugely popular. Like I don't know how many, but maybe 100 million listeners per year or something like this. Ridiculous numbers. Anyway, like I just started to thinking of Joe Rogan podcast because he talks about psychedelics all the time, and they talk about smoking weed as a way to relax, and they talk about martial arts also, and every now and then there might be somebody who talks about like relaxation or healthy lifestyle from neurological point of view, or perhaps even a spiritual point of view, although those guests are really rare. But I'm always kind of waiting for, okay, but get on with it, get past that weed smoking psychedelic
Mhm.
using step, and do some cultivation practice, any, because there's so much available nowadays. But it just hasn't, in Joe Rogan's, um, bless him, I really have enjoyed his work, but it just doesn't seem to get there in the, although there has been the mindfulness boom. But having said that, mindfulness is just too weak for most people. It doesn't, people like Joe Rogan or myself, who muscular, heavy built martial artists, got our head punched so many times in the ring, and you know these kind of simple mindfulness practice, it's too weak, really.
Mhm.
It's beneficial, I'm not saying that, but it's just too weak. It's not suitable for people like,
I see.
so there should be something for him, for types like him, something more dynamic. There is
Mhm.
Kundalini Yoga, Yogi
Mhm.
Bhajan's Kundalini Yoga, which is very
Mhm.
dynamic. Some of these Kundalini Yoga practitioners have very beautiful, very bright energy. I know a few of them who are like initiated. They have the turban in their head, you know, so they are, I guess, initiated, ordained practitioners. They have spiritual names and so on. But yeah, I think there needs to be another. There was the mindfulness boom 20 years ago, 15, 10 years ago, and it's kind of maybe brewing at the moment for something more interesting to come. Yeah. Anyway, just random thoughts.
Mhm. I It was also the last time I did this exercise. It was before I met Amrita Mandala, or back then Pemaku.
Mm.
I did this exercise of standing still and let's happening. It was interesting that nothing was happening inside of the body, but I can feel how the aura was reorganizing itself. Also, so I think this exercise on the meridian system can be really done by intention, by just feeling the aura. Let's, you know what I mean? I think this could be also very interesting to have a look in this direction.
Uh, what do you mean? You said two things. You said aura and meridian. So what exactly did you mean? I missed the point. What you meant?
Um, I think the exercise of just feeling the body and let the body release stuck energy,
Sure.
it's one thing. And then what happens is the last time I did it, a few years ago, it doesn't make any movement inside of the body, but outside of the body. So I just feel how the aura was kind of
Ah,
start to reorganize itself, and I just feel some kind of movement. I have no idea what it was, but somehow it moved out of the body into the aura.
Yeah.
But I cannot tell you, is it a difference? I have no experience. I just know what you are teaching with meridians and nadi systems. I experience in my experience, I have no such insight till now. I just understand it from your explanation.
Well, something about your comment is that apparently you are very sensitive to energy, so you can sense when, like you just said that the last time you did this exercise, you felt that there was an impact, some effect on the nadis, on the aura. And,
Mm.
you know, it depends, like it depends of people's sensitivity, what they can perceive. And also one thing is that, uh, you could basically do just sitting still and just sit and work through your meridian field, work
Mm.
through the nadis, work through the bhumis, and that could be it. It could work to somebody who has exceptional sensitivity. Because the thing with sensitivity is that when you sense something, you become aware of something that you weren't aware before. And in
Mm.
this case, you become aware of an organic system, organic mind, organic subtle body. And and the way how it works, the principle is that when you become aware of your system that is organic, I'm making this movement with my hand, like indicating that there's energy flow. There's kind of a breath flowing through it all the time. So when you become aware of some movement, some events here, you will start seeing movements, you start perceiving, sensing other things. So it is completely organic. But this is something that I've talked to our Sangha members because you know, I've done so much sitting practice and standing practice and walking practice and any practice. I've done like tens of thousands of hours, so a lot. And because of, well, maybe you don't need to practice 30,000 hours to develop sensitivity, but less is probably sufficient. But the reason why I know those things about meridian systems and nadi systems and centers and all that is because I perceive it directly in my system.
Mm.
So that is very important, like seeing, experiencing actually, that these bhumi centers or bhumi pillars or nadis, meridians, whatever are there. But this is something that I've reminded to my students, and I'm kind of slightly worried about whether people put in the hours or not because they can just follow my instructions and still get the benefit. Because the way how I teach is kind of like engineering. I teach all the different elements, ins and outs, and people only need to follow the instructions, do it exactly like I say, and there will be a result. But there is one problem there, which is that if they don't really connect their subtle perception with the subtle body, various things in it, then there's a mismatch. And this could actually become a downfall of Amrita Mandala lineage because then, just like in most other lineages, we were just having a discussion yesterday about a certain Buddhist teacher who, in a YouTube video, was, this teacher he was like a Dharma heir to two different Zen lineages, and he'd been practicing for over 30 years, maybe even 40 years. And he was speaking about the basic state. That in the video he was using like how a certain Japanese Zen master spoke about the basic state, and then he was talking about the so-called dantians that I also teach. These centers in the head, heart, and gut, and then at the opposite ends of the bhumi pillars, Mahasiddha bhumis, and he was talking about these this center in the gut that is in Zen is called Tanden. But there was a problem. So his uh, intention was to explain how one can be aware of the center in the gut while being in this basic state. No problem there, but he, um, obviously didn't understand himself that he explained the basic state in a way that you first he gave brief instructions that you just sit there and relax for a moment and then feel your gut for a moment and then start expanding your awareness consciousness into this vast spaciousness that holds everything, like holds all forms and all beings inside it. And then he was saying that as you are aware of this spaciousness, this vast space, that's the unborn, that's the basic state, but it isn't. So, he was mixing something that he had read from this ancient Japanese Zen master about this unborn state, this basic state, but then in his own experience, he has mistaken that it is this vast three-dimensional, like a sky-like spaciousness that he mistakes as basic state. So, it's a perfect example that what could happen to Amrita Mandala teachers, because if they don't know exactly
Mm.
why I'm teaching certain things in the way that I am, same thing could happen. And this would lead to unnecessary problems.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I recently I started to do rainbow body yoga without headphones, so without instruction, only by
Okay.
myself, and it was much more intensive because I just listened to my, let's say, intuition, when to stop a certain sequence here and begin the new one, and this was completely different. And after that, my body or my system felt like completely flushed by, yeah, by bliss, let's say. But it was not bliss like I'm super happy. It was more like I feel something is happening in me and outside of me, and then I just feel relaxed. It
Hmm.
was really much, much more intense than when I listened to direct instruction. Now
Yeah,
do this, now do this. And what I want to point out is I think, as if you continue to practice, and this is something what happened to me, then I slowly start to understand what you are doing with your instruction, and so the teachings kind of more connect together, so I understand a little bit more.
definitely.
It's, yeah,
Definitely,
beautiful. Yeah.
that's a very important step in one's practice, that you don't rely on guidance given by others, that you kind of guide yourself. And that way you start learning fast, because you start not, unless you're a complete moron. you know if well, I'm kind of making a joke, but it is hard to miss if there is something that is lacking, if there is something that is missing, something that needs adjustment, then it's hard to miss it when you're guiding yourself. And that's the learning process. It's much deeper than when being guided by others. Much more benefits.
Mm. Mm. It's really, there's something this hit me a few months ago because Ugi was telling that in a Thursday evening Zoom call. He said to us, to the German Sangha, that he started in the beginning, of course, to use instruction, and then shortly after that he started to make it by his own pace. Let's say that his own pace. And I was thinking about, oh, this is maybe too complicated, and I miss my attention to certain things, but
Mm-mm.
it's really, really much deeper when I do it by my own.
Yeah, and one interesting thing about the yogic tradition is that, well, of course, in over time in history, different gurus, lamas, teachers, they have had their own centers or places where they taught, and taught their students, help them grow and mature.
Mm.
But many times, uh, what would happen in history also was that a student finally found a good teacher, and the teacher accepted the student, was willing to teach her or him and gave instructions, explained the practice, and then sent the student away to
Mm.
practice it. So, uh, there are instances where I don't remember the name of that particular. I remember this one story from India, and I don't even remember when it happened, whether it was hundreds of years ago or just a few decades ago. But there was this story about a man who was somewhere in the rural area in India, just minding his own business, when suddenly from the jungle there appeared this yogi with long dreadlocks and nothing but a loincloth on and maybe a pot of water, who came to the man, took his slipper from the foot and slapped the man with the slipper so that it hurt. And the man didn't, like, what the hell, didn't, was a bit puzzled, hit it with the slipper, and then just left without saying anything. And then what would happen in this man's life was that his mind completely changed, and his mind changed, life changed, and he became a yogi and yogi master himself. So, that's like one extreme of what I'm trying to say, but you know, there are so many instances in the history of yogis that the contact between teachers and students have been very brief, and
Mm.
not like hanging out together for decades, which is
Yeah.
another way to do it. And I'm not saying that either option is better or worse. It depends on circumstances, it depends on people, it depends on a dynamic in the relationship, it depends on one's personal abilities, health also very much. But another example of this, what I often like to mention, is the greatest Japanese Zen master of modern times, like within the last 500 years, is Zen master Hakuin.
Mm.
Hakuin. And Hakuin, it's been a long time since I easily forget like biographical
Mm.
information, but like he had had some training in a temple. He wanted to become a priest and so on, but he didn't find his own heart teacher until a little later. So, he had done some Zen meditation training and temple training and all that. And then he found his teacher, his heart teacher, who was this really old, like this old fashioned grit that in the modern Dharma world would be cancelled in a heartbeat, because he was so abusive, so rough, uh,
Mm.
just like so many other masters in history. They've been, you know, seen with modern eyes, with the modern Westerner, those masters would be cancelled right away. But I wouldn't perhaps cancel them. But it depends. It depends what you perceive. It depends how open you are, how receptive you are, and all that. Anyway, Zen Master Hakuin, he stayed with Soju Rojin, his heart teacher, for 9 months only. 9 months. And he didn't receive Dharma transmission, like he wasn't authorized to become a teacher, but he stayed for 9 months, and it changed young Hakuin's life, and he later became the most important and the most influential modern Zen master of Japan. And I also like that story because he didn't have a formal recognition of the lineage. He didn't have formal recognition of his teacher. But this has become such a big number in Buddhism that you have to have lineage papers and formal authorization for your dharma to be authentic. In that case, I'm completely inauthentic. But so was Zen Master Hakuin. I have a few years ago. I have these. Maybe I'll try to. Now that I started thinking of calligraphies, there's one calligraphy there on the wall.
Mm.
It's Tiger by a very famous Japanese Zen master called Mumon Roshi, who passed away in 1988. And now that I started talking about calligraphies, there's the one on that wall that you helped me to acquire.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one. Thank you so much for
Ah,
helping with it.
beautiful.
Yeah, there's some backlight so it can't be seen properly, but thanks for helping with it. But
Uh,
Zen Master Hakuin is so famous and he brushed a lot of calligraphies. But he's so famous and so liked, and his calligraphies are so sought after that guy like me, I don't have enough money to buy them. But I was very lucky because about 10 years ago I found there are so many forgeries of famous calligraphers in the East Asia. But I was lucky to I just made an online bid in an calligraphy auction, and it said that it was Zen Master Hakuin's, and it was this small calligraphy, small scroll that was already in such a bad shape, bad condition, the scroll, but the paper was okay. So I looked at the photo and I sensed the energy from the photo, and I felt like, wait a second, this is not a forgery. This is authentic realization energy coming from this piece. And I made a bid like something like $18, and I won it because nobody else wanted it. Apparently, people thought that, well, oh, duh, it's a forgery and it's really bad shape, so they didn't want anything to do with it. But I read the energy and I got it, and I still have it. I don't have it on my wall now, but you know, I own one Hakuin, original Hakuin. Yeah,
it's when you showed the calligraphy next to the television, it was before you I never pay attention to such stuff, but it's really kind of energy coming
yeah,
from this calligraphy. It's really kind of relaxing, but you feel also how you are lifted somehow. It's really, also in my case at least, it's really interesting.
yeah. That's the basic idea of Zen arts.
Mm.
But uh, maybe you saw yesterday I wrote a long post in Facebook about different practices that I put together into Amrita Asana, and I kind of tricked people into practicing asana yoga, but it's kind of internal martial art training. So I kind of tricked
Mm.
people to do that. But it's the same thing with Zen art, because when I say the term Zen art, I know it's immediately off-putting. How do you say that? Off-putting. People
I know
people
what you
are not,
mean. Yeah.
people are not that excited about Zen arts.
Mm.
So, for years, I've been trying to find a term how to make people interested about Zen arts or spirit, like genuine Dharma art. But Dharma art also sounds so boring. But, there is the basic idea of Zen arts is that somebody who has some level of realization, or in the best case scenario, is fully enlightened, transmits her or his energy into the art piece, whether it's a drawing, painting with black ink, painting with oil colors, makes a sculpture, anything, this energy is infused into that piece of art. And, you know, when I first learned about this, I was a small boy when I started judo, martial arts, and then I learned about calligraphy. And I remember when I went to the library to borrow all the books of East Asian arts and calligraphy. So I knew of calligraphy since I was a kid, but then at one point when I learned about Zen calligraphy and Zen arts and about the main purpose that I just said, I immediately thought that, that's the most important thing in arts. I had spent years playing the guitar. I was
Hmm.
professionally educated in music and
Hmm.
guitar and music production, and I was always looking for this truth in arts. Like, is it possible to perform or practice arts from this? I didn't know what it was, but from this perspective of truth. And when I learned about Zen arts, it was like, it's a way to. I have Mumon Roshi's calligraphy on the wall, who passed away almost 40 years ago. And I have calligraphies that are, I think the oldest one, well, Hakuin lived 400 years ago. But I think I have even older than that. But there are calligraphies existing that are almost 1500 years old, from certain masters who lived around then. So imagine if you had a art piece of art from Padmasambhava, if you had some painting by Yeshe Tsogyal, Babaji, any of these gurus, it would be possible if they only had done it. So it's an excellent record of that
Understand. Yeah.
that master, and it can help so tremendously. Having one of those on the walls or a couple of those, it's a huge, immense blessing.
Interesting.
Mm.
Really interesting. A lot of things I never thought about it before, Amrita Mandala.
Yeah,
I love to listen your talks always because there's always some small hints I never thought about it.
yeah, and one thing that I worked a lot since I actually worked on it for a decade after I came back from Japan is because I realized that Westerners aren't interested in black ink calligraphy
Mm,
or writing Chinese characters. They just aren't interested. It's like, at most, it's a curiosity that they
mm.
try for a weekend. So this really made me to contemplate how to translate Zen arts in a way that is interesting from our Western artistic appreciation. So that's why, I haven't painted Chinese characters or used black ink in many many years anymore. Just because I did it so much already, and I don't think it's that relevant. But what is relevant is the art of Dharma, art coming from
Mm.
the basic state of mind, Buddha nature. And I hope to
It was,
somehow transmit it to my
yeah,
students. Yeah,
it was kind of interesting. You said that you tried to put this kind of transmission into music,
yeah.
playing music. I had one experience many, many years ago. Um, I used to play soccer just for hobby or for fun, and in a club, of course, organized with league and everything. And I had one game I still remember. This is maybe 22 years ago or something like that.
Mhm.
I cannot describe it, but today I would say I was in a very clear state the whole day, or at least 3 or 4 hours. And exactly
Yeah,
during this time, we had a game against, I don't know which team. And it was until now the absolute best game that I ever have performed. And after the game, the people are coming to me. What have you done today? Even the opponents come to me. This was amazing. And the thing was,
Yeah.
I cannot remember. For me, it was just normal. There was no judgment in my mind. Like, oh, this was good. I have to do this. Everything was just a flow. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think this is the experience of the music guys. The unbelievable arts which we can see that a lot of people have this maybe all the time. I don't know, and they create beautiful pictures, calligraphies, music. And this was really that now I maybe understand what happened then more or less. And I think this is really important to have such thing in work. Even if a cook maybe in a restaurant have this kind of flow and you eat such food, this must be unbelievable beneficial for your body.
Yeah. Uh, as you were talking about that experience with football years ago, I had the same experiences when I was a kid with judo competitions. I would pop out from my usual state of mind and be in this completely different realm, and it was so easy to win opponents in that state of mind. It was so easy. It was like floating through the space. Uh, so I had same experiences as a kid. But yeah, this is one thing that is unfortunate with athletes, with artists, whoever work with expression, is that they struggle with this. They struggle
Mm,
to get to they don't exactly know how to get into the zone. They don't know how to
mm,
get into the flow, but they know that when they've gone into that zone or flow, everything takes care of by itself, and they get the best
mm,
results. Uh, Also in like athletic competitions. This is not a secret. This has been discussed by so many
mm.
professional athletes, so many great world champions and whatnot. But it's so simple. This is also one thing that I practiced martial arts so much that uh, I've experienced it myself. And it's these little things. If people knew how they could take their performance to a whole different level and their life to a whole different level. It's very unfortunate that we are still at this stage where it's not mainstream knowledge what we are talking about, but yeah, it's the shift in the mind. It's the two modes. It's the selfless mode and self-based mode. And if you're stuck with self-based mode, you're you're not going to be able to enjoy your football match, soccer match,
Mm.
or be able to score in the way that you would if you were in the basic state or in the zone. That's just the way how it is. Yeah.
I slowly begin to understand. We have every Thursday a meeting with Ugi, and he's trying to explain the same thing from a lot of different angles. And sometimes it makes really a click in my mind that this is really interesting, the self-based and the selfless mode, how close is it? How less steps are necessary to really let's say, step out,
Right.
and
Yeah.
this not trying to do it or just to be. It's so hard for the mind because I'm simply trained, and even the body and the mind or the brain is addicted to the way of thinking we used to. So this is
Yeah.
something we know from science that the brain is efficient, the body is efficient. So I want to have the same hormones, and the hormones can be introduced by thoughts and feelings. So the body want to have the used hormones he knows. So this is why we have always maybe a reason, a biochemical reason why we have always difficulties to change our behavior, because the body is simply effective. He wants just to have the same because he knows
Mm.
how to use it, how to work on it.
Yeah.
And this is really interesting. And slowly I begin to connect all the different stuff I know about the body and the mind. It's really good.
Yeah.
Honestly, I have one or two questions, completely
Yeah.
different topic, when it's okay
Sure.
for you.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Um, I'm a completely samsaric being. is there a way how I can help somebody who died?
Oh,
There's nobody in my area who died. I just think about my parents are very old and they're not kind of, let's say they are really good-hearted, but they are not directed to a dharma. They believe in God, they believe in Jesus. They are completely in this direction really good, but I just want to help them. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's maybe it sounds stupid, but
No, it is not stupid at all. It's actually one of those questions that I hope that people would think more, because I've been asked this question many times throughout the years, and I've
oh,
given simple instructions that can be done on behalf of loved ones, family members, relatives, who friends who pass away, and it's not difficult.
mhm,
So I'll explain. So when somebody passes away, if you know beforehand that somebody is going to pass away, let's say within a couple of weeks or days or so or hours, already then you can ask blessings, really go into a silent state of mind, and then ask blessings, invite the presence of, if the person in question is Christian, for example, doesn't need to be practicing Christian, but has been baptized as a baby, that is enough.
mhm,
So if you know that this person is a Christian, of course in the West you would either be baptized Christian or not. Then you would be atheist. But there aren't really that many options. Maybe like somebody's Jewish, but then
mhm,
you would turn to Jewish prophets. But in the case of Christianity, for example, as soon as you know that the person is going to pass away, or if you learn about it afterwards, doesn't matter if it's 1 hour after the person has deceased, or week or year after, when you find out, oh, I didn't know that Uncle Jack has passed away.
mhm.
Then you go into a peaceful, silent state, and you really, from your heart, this is really important, from your heart you ask for the prophet, for the master that has karmic connection with the deceased person, to take care of her or him, to bless her or him, and to guide that person onwards. That's all there is to it,
Oh,
basically. But
perfect.
one thing that is really important is that, sometimes people think that, well, can I then pray for all deceased persons, all the 150,000 people who die a day in the world? Sure, but the thing is that when you have a personal karma with somebody who dies, your prayers will have much more effect than if you don't have that connection. That's why I said that you need to feel it in your own heart. You really
Mhm,
ask help for
mhm,
somebody who you knew and who you care about. So, this can be done. If it's somebody who is an atheist, doesn't, of course, atheists usually believe that when they die, that's the end of it. But that's not the case. It doesn't end. But what would be the options in that case? You can choose a master who you pray to, or maybe even two, three masters who you ask for help. Yeah, and then we talked about sensitivity. Then just see what happens,
mhm,
because it is like, the way how I teach is that we pay attention to energetics. And this is unfortunately too little known in the world of meditation, that they should, meditators often do chants of mantras and prayers a lot, but then nobody tells them to pay attention to the energetic charge afterwards. So
Hmm.
people don't know how to be sensitive and pick up that things actually happen in their own minds, or in this case, when helping a deceased person. But this is really when somebody passes away and we have the honor and opportunity to help them, then as practitioners we should really, insects, they have these meters on their heads that they listen and they feel. So we should really fine tune our meters and sense, look, listen, perceive, whether it happens what we're asking or not. And of course, when we ask blessings from any master, that always comes. If your heart energy, your own concern is there, it always happens. It moves something because, compassionate beings, bodhisattvas, mahasiddhas, react to those genuine prayers. But then, you check, and as you check, you learn about what happens after death, what can happen, what doesn't necessarily need to happen, and what is important, how different masters, how they take care of deceased people. It's such a big lesson. I've been fortunate to help, I don't know, maybe dozen or so people who I knew, and it is fantastic, fantastic opportunities to learn. Yeah,
Okay, thank you. That's something what crossed my mind many times.
yeah,
How to help people which maybe are not into Dharma. I mean, it is how it is, and but anyway, you want them to have a good path,
yeah,
a good way of life, or afterwards a good opportunity to
yeah, yeah, yeah,
involve.
yeah. That will definitely help.
What I completely forgot to mention, because we maybe 20, 30 minutes ago we discussed about how dharmic practice is changing and what is happening outside and how we behave ahead of maybe a few weeks, whereas believe that I do everything wrong because I start to react differently in situation, and then after a few weeks I recognize, oh, this is the stuff I have suppressed. You know
Ah,
what I mean? And
mhm.
this is for me, this was a sign of that I do the stuff in the right way, that I do the Dharma practice or the Rainbow Body Yoga and the Amrita Mandala teachings in the right way, because now the stuff is showing up what I have suppressed. It's really interesting. So this is what I want to say 20 minutes ago, but I somehow missed it.
Yeah, that's the bread and butter of practice, isn't it?
Mm,
Because we were talking about subconscious mind briefly earlier, and even our sense of self, like the grossest sense of self,
mhm,
meaning like first bhumi, gross,
mhm,
it's subconscious
mhm.
until you start having these awakening experiences, and through them become more and more aware what is inside you. So that's the whole terrain. That's the task, and it can be. It is like that from beginning to end. When we are working with wisdom body, purifying bhumis from first to 10, having these awakening experiences, and then bhumi perfections where you feel more settled, you kind of settled into it more. That's the whole process, what you just said. But it's the same thing with working, purifying meridians. So it's the same process exactly with when going for light body. Same principle, same
It's
rules.
good. Okay, Baba, thank you
Is it
very much.
enough? Is it not?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
it
yeah.
enough for today? It went so fast. I don't know why it went so fast.
It was interesting.
Yeah, I really enjoy these discussions because it's lovely to talk with people, I guess. Yeah.
One day I will visit you if it's possible, of course. And yeah, I'm looking forward in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, we will see each other in Switzerland.
Oh, you're coming.
Yes, I'm coming.
Brilliant, brilliant.
Oh, I have just one question. I have some muscle issues. Do you think it's possible to sit on a chair instead of the pillow?
I always sit on a chair on retreats.
So is it also allowed for me, or is it
Of
a
course,
kind of
it's allowed for everybody.
okay,
I actually
okay,
recommend sitting on chair because it's much more easier and
yeah,
comfortable. So you don't, when you're sitting on a chair, you don't need to worry about your legs at all.
exactly. I have some kind of issues from soccer playing 30 years,
Mm,
so I s- I have to do much more stretching, but at the moment I don't do it because of no time
yeah.
with work and children. This is something I don't put attention to it at the moment, so I have really issues sitting on a cushion. That's why I'm
Okay.
asking.
Yeah, no problem at all. No problem.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm looking forward to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah,
You too. All right, Slavi. Thank you for this chat. It was lovely. And
you. Same
see you
here.
in a short time.
Bye
Okay.
bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.